There we go. Hello, everyone. I am Tracy Fisher, and I'm your host of Paranormal Frequencies. And I'm so glad that you were able to join us today because on today's program, I have a special guest. His name is Brian Paone, and he is a Massachusetts native, but now resides in Virginia. And he's been a published novelist since 2007 and has performed in bands since 1995. His novels are primarily speculative fiction, ranging from thrillers to drama to horror to science fiction to fantasy and romance. His bands cover a wide range of different metal and industrial genres and styles. I'm so glad that he is able to join us today. Welcome, Brian, to the show.
Thank you.
I
Thank you for having
understand
me.
that. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I understand you were born and raised in Salem, Massachusetts. And during
Yes.
our initial chat a couple of weeks ago, you shared experiences that you had when you were living over in an apartment over a funeral home. I found it really intriguing and fascinating. So I would love it if you could share it with the listeners today.
Sure. Yeah. You know, I was born and raised in Salem. I didn't leave until I was 30. So I spent, the first 30 years of my life, living in Salem, Massachusetts. And I find that if you're from that area or you're from Massachusetts, or even if you're from New England, and you're from Salem, nobody really bats an eye. It's just, it's pretty normal. But the further out that I go in the country, in places I've lived or visited, I find the further away from Massachusetts I get, and I tell people that's where I'm from, it tends to come with this, this like, oh my God, like that's my number one place on my bucket list, or, people just like have like all these questions about what it was like, to like, be raised there because, you know, so many people want to go there on vacation for Halloween, or it's kind of like the holy land if you're into all that type of stuff. And then, but for me, it was just living there, right? I mean, you live there. So I went to school there. I worked there. You know, um, but like you said, my parents got divorced when I was 8, and my mother and I moved in with my stepdad, um, and shortly after the divorce, and we had moved into a little apartment across the street, down the road from my dad, so I was still close, so I could see my dad as much as I wanted. But we needed like to find a new place to live, and my parents worked for the funeral home. My stepfather was an actual funeral director at this funeral home, and my mother worked there as well, not as a funeral director, but she was like the jack of all trades, where she did like literally everything else.
Hmm.
And the owner of the funeral home like threw them a bone and said, "Hey, if you guys clean up that apartment, that's above the funeral home, it's on the property, you can, and you can have it, and
Nice.
so yeah, so we moved into the funeral home, when I was a kid, and my formative years, when we think of our formative years, um, was spent living in a funeral home, on the outskirts of Salem, Massachusetts, which is, which was wild, which is, don't know if that played a part into some of the things that I'm into, just kind of being around the macabre and the death all the time. And I have a lot of funny stories about growing up in a funeral home. I also have some spooky stories about growing up in a funeral home. Like for instance, like a funny story was I didn't know that there was a wake happening, I believe, downstairs. I think it was a wake. And I was up in my bedroom, and I think I was like just blasting like Nine Inch Nails as loud as my stereo could pump it. And my mother came like barreling into my bedroom. She's like, turn it down, there's a wake downstairs. Oh my God. Like, and they could hear, the like
Yeah.
Dallas Spiral album coming, just like infiltrating the funeral home. And there's people that, crying because, grandma's in the casket dead, and I'm up there. And so it was a different type of upbringing, right? Like,
Mhm.
we had to keep our music and TV low for other reasons most people don't have to, right?
Yeah.
So, so that's so, I got into like H.P. Lovecraft. My stepfather got me into H.P. Lovecraft. My stepmother got me into like Edgar Allan Poe when I was, young. Um, but I had always been a horror fan, and but I had been reading like the Fear Street novels and R.L. Stine and just stuff that wasn't really adult, you know, and I didn't really even know that adult books existed out there. And my stepmother for Christmas bought me my first Stephen King book. Now I had seen
Right.
Stephen King movies, right? I'd been a big horror movie fan, but I hadn't really yet gotten into reading grown-up horror novels. And she bought me my first Stephen King novel, which was The Dark Half, because it was the book that was brand new. You know, I guess she couldn't decide which one of the classics to get me started on, you know, what, you know, Pet Sematary or Salem's Lot or Carrie or The Stand or whatever. So she's like, yeah, screw it. I'll just buy him Stephen King's most recent. We'll just go from there. We'll see what happens.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
It just happened to be the new book, right?
Mhm.
And I read it, and that was it. I mean, that was my gateway. And I know being like saying Stephen King is your favorite author is kind of cliche, you know. If you're a horror fan, that he tends to come with some of an eye roll, you know, so many decades later, because oh sure, you and you know every other kabillion horror fans out there, right? But like, but I read him at a time when I was super impressionable and I needed that leap, right?
Right.
But it was
That was
reading
your
him.
inspiration.
Yeah, well, it was reading him that made me want to be an author. I hadn't really wanted to be an author until I read The Dark Half, and I was like, holy, you know, crap! Like this, you could do this for a living. And then I found Clive Barker, I found Anne Rice, I found Dean Koontz, all through, you know, King. And I would say that Anne Rice, Clive Barker, Dean Koontz, Stephen King were the soundtrack of my teen years. You know, like when I look back at my teenage years, um, that's all I was reading. Like that's all I would read. I just consumed everything out there by those authors, and they definitely shaped how I wrote things, how I looked at things. You know,
Right. I
um,
think you shared with me, I think when Stephen King was sort of like that one author that just kind of kick-started everything, you went into the bookstore and you dropped all this money and got
yeah,
every one of his
I
books.
I decided to. Yeah, well, I did. I there was a bookstore. I can't remember the name of it. It was in the mall. But I went in and I either used every mall gift certificate I had gotten for Christmas or my birthday, because my birthday's in December too, right? So like I
Right.
tend to it tends to coincide. I just remember going in and like walking to, you know, Fiction K, finding his last name and just going like clunk, and I brought it up to the counter. I was like flunk, right? Just like
Exactly.
finally bought the whole everything up until that point. And since The Dark Half, um, since that book came out, I have bought every Stephen King novel in hardcover on the day it's been published. Even now, like even his most recent, like I've never missed one. So I
Oh,
have
good.
in my writing office, I have what we call the Stephen King bookcase, because there's nothing else in it but his novels, and it's all in chronological order that he wrote them, and they're all hardcover, and that's what sits next to me at my writing desk. You know, so
Right.
sometimes
Sort
if
of
I'm
feed
sitting
off
there,
that.
yeah, sometimes I was sitting there and I have like writer's block. I kind of just have to glance like this, and I just see all the spines of all the titles, and then you know, there's like kind of
How
jump
many?
start.
I don't even know how many he's written.
Not 92.
Wow.
Yeah, so 93 is coming out in May. I already have it pre-ordered from Amazon, the hardcover, so that'll be delivered the day it comes out. But yeah,
Well,
yeah,
he,
and when I say that, I'm also including, because if someone's going to go fact check me or throw the bullcrap flag when I throw out that number, I'm also including all of his short story books like Night Shift,
yeah.
Skeleton Crew, and all that. I'm also
Okay.
including his nonfiction. He has like on writing. He's got so I'm including everything. He has a book with F. Scott Fitzgerald, where it's pictures of gargoyles, where King did all the narration.
Okay.
I'm including that. So everybody would be like, no, that number's wrong. I'm
Well,
including
that's
everything
included.
his name is on the front cover of. So
No,
yeah.
well, he actually, I live in Englewood, which is southwestern Florida, and I'm near Manasota Key, and he owns a home on
Right.
Manasota Key.
Yep.
I think I've driven by it, but nobody knows when he's here or not. But I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of famous people that have homes here, but nobody knows their comings and goings. So anyway, just
Yeah,
thought I'd share.
I've been to his house in Maine.
Yeah.
I went to his house in Bangor, and when I was there, his cleaning lady was there, and she was in the driveway, and I was chit-chatting with her, and he was in Florida at his Florida home when I was visiting his house in Bangor. I didn't know that he wasn't home in Bangor. I went with the taking a shot in the dark that maybe he would be there, because I went before that guy showed up at his house with the bomb strapped to him. So back then, if you went to Stephen King's house and you weren't like 30 people,
Right.
and he was home, and if he would see you, he would sometimes come out and like to his gate and just shoot the crap with you for a couple of minutes, and maybe sign an autograph and get a picture, and then he'd go back inside. So there was always a chance that if you went to his house and he was home, you would get to meet him on like a one-on-one basis. So I went, with the 50% shot that could happen, but he was in Florida when I was there. His cleaning lady came out and chit-chatted with me.
Yeah, well, I want to also step into your experience, and I want you to talk more about your new book that's coming up. And you had some experiences while you were at Missouri State Penitentiary,
right?
And that there's a lot of information there, and I'd love for you to just go for it.
Yeah, sure. So for everybody listening or watching, my upcoming novel is about sorry about my dog. Oh my gosh.
It's okay.
Is about a ghost hunt gone wrong at the Missouri State Penitentiary. Missouri State Penitentiary was decommissioned in 2004. So for 20 years now, they give daytime historic tours, and then they give nighttime ghost tours. And then on the weekends, they do overnight ghost hunts, free reign ghost hunts, free roam ghost hunts, free reign. We're the chickens on a farm. So
potato.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, free reign sounds like free range, like
there's a bunch of chickens there.
So, so I was out in Missouri for work, and we had a weekend free. And one of the guys that I was out there for training with, we were looking for something to do in the Missouri State Penitentiary. It was pretty close to where we were training, and he was like, "Hey, they have overnight ghost hunts," and I'd never done one before. I've never done an official overnight ghost hunt where they hand you a bunch of ghost hunting equipment and you get to go and spend all night in a haunted place. And so I went, and it bowled me over. I just was had so much fun. I couldn't believe that. Like, where had I been for the last
X amount exactly.
Why haven't I been doing this my whole life, right? Kind of, it's like riding a roller coaster for the first time, just being like, whoa, like, so I went back again, and then went back a third time, and my author brain wheels started churning in my head, and I said, "There's a book here. There's a horror novel here. That could take place right here at Missouri State Penitentiary. In fact, I'm wearing their shirt.
Yes, I saw that. That's really cool.
So,
nice promo.
Yeah, I know, right? I just said, this was so much fun. What if I write a novel? The entire novel takes place during that overnight ghost hunt. So it opens when the guests arrive, and it ends when it's over. So there's no, almost like the novel, when you read it, it's actually happening in real time. So the novel this novel only takes place over the span of 8 hours, the whole novel. And it's about a woman who had went to the Missouri State Penitentiary on her 21st birthday with a bunch of her friends, and they were drunk. And on a dare, she stole something from one of the cells, and the ghost that was, resided in that cell followed her home, and was haunting her at her house. So she figures the only way to get rid of it is to return what she stole back to the prison. So the novel opens with her arriving at Missouri State Penitentiary to return it, right? So, like I said, the entire book takes place during the ghost hunt, the overnight ghost hunt. But she can't remember what cell she stole it from. And now that she's back inside on the property with this thing that she stole that has an inmate attached to it, it kind of riles up all the ghosts, and he doesn't. The inmate that's attached to the article, doesn't want to go back, so he's doing everything in his power to not be returned, right? Because if you were in prison and someone helped you, break out almost, would you want to be returned? No, you
Right.
wouldn't want to go back.
Right.
Well, there's a warden that's a ghost that's in charge of all the spirits in my book. And when he realizes that his escaped convict is back, he now does everything in his power to not let my main character leave, because he doesn't want to lose his inmate again. So the whole book, and what I did with the book was, there's nothing in the book. None of the buildings are changed at all. My description of the property is to a T. But the interesting thing is that the Missouri State Penitentiary, and this is usually when all the questions come. The Missouri State Penitentiary let me stay there for 8 weeks, and I wrote the entire book inside Missouri State Penitentiary at night, in the dark, usually alone, on the property of this haunted prison. So from July to September, I was in the Missouri State Penitentiary with my laptop, and I moved around. I was, I wrote in the gas chamber. I wrote on death row. I wrote in the women's unit. I wrote in the general population building. Yeah, I wrote throughout the middle of the night in the dark. The entire book was written on the property, overnight, over 8 weeks.
Yeah, because I think you told me too, that there was an episode or an experience that you had inside a cell with a night guard and somebody that was just with you for the evening, and something.
So it was one of the employees. Yeah, no, it was an employee of the Missouri State Penitentiary. It was one of the tour guides, James. And so at night, like I told you, they do ghost tours, and then on the weekend nights they had the overnight ghost hunts. And this was during one of the overnight ghost hunts, and I was sitting in cell 20, which has a sordid history in itself, and it's always known to have a lot of things happen in it. But there's an old barber chair in cell 20, and I would like to sit. That chair is very comfortable, so I used to sit in that chair and write a lot. So the free roam overnight ghost hunt was going on. So there's people all over the property in little pockets. The property is huge; it's massive, right? I mean, it's so big that you could go half an hour without seeing another person walking around the place, right? I was in cell 20 writing. It's probably about 1 a.m. James, the tour guide, I became really close with all the tour guides. I spent so much time with them while I was there for those 8 weeks. James saw me in cell 20, came in, and when they do the overnight ghost hunts, the free roam, they have to have a uniformed Jefferson City police officer on the property, just because they're letting people wander around on their own, right? So they got to make sure that no fights break out, nobody's drinking, nobody stumbles and hurts themselves, nobody tries to steal anything, even though that's the premise of my book. So they have a uniformed on duty, patrolman.
Right.
And at the night, it was a woman, Officer Jensen, and she was really cool. And their job is to just walk around, just be police presence, right? So when I tell the story, you got to remember that she's not there for the ghost hunt. She's working, right? She's not there hunting ghosts, looking for ghosts, doing anything like that. She sees me and James in cell 20 and kind of pops in, right? And I got to know all the Jefferson City police officers too, because there's always one on the property every night, and I was there every night writing. I just, there was only so many of them that would rotate around. So I eventually got to know them all pretty well. So she sees me and James inside cell 20. So she decides to come in. She sits down next to me on this bench. James is sitting on the floor across from her, and I'm sitting in that barber chair, which is in the corner. And I'm kind of writing, and we're talking, and she out of nowhere, she says, something's touching my right leg, but she was too scared to look down. So me and James looked down at her right leg, and I closed my laptop because the glow from my screen was kind of like making weird shadows. So I wanted to make sure that it wasn't like I wasn't seeing something, that was a reflection off my laptop, right? Close the laptop. Now we're in like, now we're in pretty much darkness except for like the ambient light of like the moon coming through the windows, right?
Right.
Her entire right leg is gone. Like, and when I say gone, I mean it looked like someone had taken a black like pillowcase or black whatever and just was holding it over her right leg. Only her left leg was there. We could see her boot. We could see her pants because she had that like blue police color pants on.
Yeah.
Her left leg was there. Her right leg was gone up to the knee. From the floor to the knee, it was like not
So you
there.
think something may have been sitting in front, something was holding her leg? Was there any shape like of a hand or anything like that?
No,
Or?
it was just a black mass. But she says, now me and James are like, we can't see your leg. Something's in front of your leg. So she out loud says, whatever's touching me, could you please go away or please leave or do something? I forget what she says.
Right.
As soon as she says that, me and James watch that black mass kind of fall more to the ground. We can now see her leg, and it scoots across the prison and disappears under the sink into the wall.
Wow.
And the three of us were just like, because we all saw it, right? Yeah. It's not like one of us saw it and then the other two were just like agreeing to it. Like we just, we left. I left. I left the room. I was like, okay, something just came out, and but
makes you wonder if any of these shadows, when you were alone, wherever you were in this facility, those shadows could have been present and you just really didn't see it because you were so involved with writing. Ugh.
Yeah, my very first night writing, I was writing the second paragraph of the novel, and something like paranormal happened to me almost immediately. So I opened up a new file on my laptop, and I jotted down what happened, and I started to keep a diary because so many things were happening to me while I was there over the 8 weeks writing. So I kept this diary, and we've decided to publish my diary at the end of the book. So when the book ends, the book is done, the end, you're going to turn the page. And if you want to read, the diary of what I went through while I was there writing, you can, or you don't have to, because it's not part of the book, right? It's
but I think that's a really cool, clever pairing that people can read the book and then they can kind of see what was going on, at the time that you were actually writing. So I think that was a great idea.
So once I decided to keep that diary, anytime anything happened at all, I would immediately stop writing the book part, and I would go to the diary file, and I would, notate it just so I wouldn't forget. I didn't want to rely on my memory to remember these things, like, later, like the next morning or something. I would write it immediately. I'd be like, and then this happened, to me. I mean, it was a fun 8 weeks, and I got to say, I have to absolutely say that the staff, Sheila, she's the one who's in charge of the tour guide. She's their boss. She's in charge of the tours. She's in charge of the employees. If it wasn't for her believing in me, and allowing me to stay there for 8 weeks, and then if it wasn't for the tour guides themselves, how they accepted me as one of their own, I wouldn't have had as positive of an experience there. I mean, the staff were just absolutely phenomenal. And so this is a good time for me to drop this. We are having the official book release party at the Missouri State Penitentiary, and it's also going to be followed by an 8-hour overnight ghost hunt.
Nice.
And the whole night is going to be hosted by Get Haunted, who is a professional ghost hunting team out of Pennsylvania. And they are coming out with all of their high-end ghost hunting stuff that you see like in TV shows and the movies. They're going to be bringing all of it. And we only have 100 tickets available for this. Okay. So for anybody listening, if you feel like taking a trip to Missouri, or you live near Missouri, or you're like, heck yeah, I want to try that. It is Saturday, June 21st.
Okay.
We are going to start Doors are going to open around 7 p.m. And we are going to stay until about 6 a.m. I think that's the latest we can stay. So we will be there all night. But it is going to be the official book release party. I will be kind of showing people where I wrote all different parts of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And then Get Haunted, the guys in Get Haunted, their whole crew is flying out for it. And then they're going to take over and they're going to do actual hands-on ghost hunting with people. And they let people use their equipment. This isn't like you sit there and you watch them do it. They'll teach you how to use it and they'll hand it to you. And then you can actually take these things that you see in like the movies and use it.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
We're going to do an 8-hour free roam. So people can, go anywhere they want. But yes, so if anybody's interested, tickets have already gone on sale. We've already sold quite a bit. Once the 100 tickets are gone, that's it. We have a cap. Sheila, who's in charge of the prison, told us she actually originally said only 75, but me and the owner of Get Haunted talked her into 100. But we cannot
nice round number.
That. Like the fact that we went.
I think you're gonna sell them. I think with this, because I think that's just a great way to introduce the book, and
we're gonna have games and prizes too. We're gonna have a scavenger hunt.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna have a scavenger hunt set up in the building,
and whoever finds all of the things that you're supposed to find first, you're gonna get like a really huge gift, from me. And so if anybody's interested and you want it, or even if you're like on the fence and you just want to know more about this, if you go to my website, which is myname.com. So Brian, Brian, and then my last name is Paone. So brianpaone.com.
Oh yeah, folks, get out there and check that out. I think that's great.
Yeah, when you come up to my website, the banner at the top, on every page of my website, the banner is a clickable link to bring you to all the information you need for the book release party and the ghost hunt. And it'll also give you a big description of what we're going to be doing that night. And then there'll be at the bottom is where you can buy a ticket if you want to come.
Now, when does the book actually get released? Is it on that date?
The book is going, because that's the book release party. The book will not be available in stores until the day after the book release party.
Okay.
Because I don't want to have the book out there and then people come to the book release party and feel like they got gypped.
No, I understand.
Because all the ones that will be at the book release party are going to be numbered, and so like you got it before anybody else. We are doing a soft. So what I'm about to say is going to sound like I'm contradicting myself, but we are doing a soft release, which means that I have a few book festivals and conventions that I'm booked at coming up before June. I will be selling copies of the book at my table, at my booth. But the book will not be available. Like, you can't go into a store. You won't be able to, you can't buy it on anywhere. The only way to get it before the book release party is if you come to one of my events.
Okay. So that sounds good. Because I would like a copy. I'd like it signed, and I'm willing to pay for it.
Yeah, there'll be a link. We're going to start taking pre-orders pretty soon. And there will be a link. You can either pre-order from Amazon, but if you want a signed copy, then there will be a pre-order link from my website, and all the pre-orders that come through my website, those will be signed. They won't be numbered. You have to come to the book release party to get a numbered one.
No, I understand.
So yeah, there'll be like,
even if it means I'll buy one online or in the store, and I'll send you a SAISY self-addressed envelope. You can sign it and send it back. I would love that.
But we've already released the front cover. We've already released there's a book trailer. The name of the book is These Walls Still Talk, which is actually on this t-shirt. These Walls Still Talk.
Stand up. Let us see it.
Oh yeah. These Walls Still Talk.
Yes. Oh, I love it. It's great. I also want to touch upon, because we had talked briefly, because I think this is really a successful genre in the making, where you would start to go to other locations and do the same thing, not the same story,
Right.
but the same thing. And I know you and I talked about that, and you do
Mhm.
have possibly something coming up. So if you could
I
kind
do,
of share.
yes. So this is what happened. What's wild about this is that in every interview I've done, I've been on a slew of broadcasts. I've done a bunch of panels at writers conferences, at book festivals. All of the questions I get asked about this book, nobody asks me about the book. Nobody cares. All of my questions are about what it was like to write the book inside a haunted prison, inside the location that the book takes place. Like, that's where all of my questions are, right? So that's like what everybody wants to talk about. Oh my God, what was it like being there? Nobody's like, hey, what's the book about? Or,
Right.
like, no, like literally like everything. So I've had some people tell me that, say, actors who don't get out of character, after, when they're not shooting, it's, they call it method acting. Like, you stay in character. Someone's like, this is method writing. Like, you went to where the book takes place. You didn't leave until the book was done. Like, this is method writing. And I got invited to, so Get Haunted had their first supernatural soiree in New Jersey back in October. And I was invited as a guest of honor because I'm working with them right now with this book and all that. And I met a lot of people from all over the country at the soiree. People flew in from all over the country to go to this. It was on the Battleship, New Jersey. They held it. It was on the Battleship, New Jersey. And I met a couple, Ernie and Denise Pack. They own what is considered like the most haunted B&B in the state of Kentucky. But their thing isn't just ghosts. Their property tends to be in like this really weird, like, Bermuda Triangle. They have like Bigfoot sightings and like UFO sightings. And there's a picture that I have on my phone that they sent me that a guest took of a fairy. Like, if you believe in fairies, it's wild, right? So
Yes.
as
I
we're
mean, it's
talking,
not something I've pursued, but I know others do.
yeah, right. So I'm talking to them, and they said, hey, they're like, if you are ever thinking about writing, if another book, it wouldn't be a sequel, right? It's not going to be a part 2 to this book, because this book it's done. But if I was to make it a series, kind of like the Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew or
Yes.
even Goosebumps, right? Where every book has a completely new set of characters and is at a new location with a new set of problems but it's catered towards that location. Like, I'm not going to make something up that doesn't happen at that location. Everything that happens at the Missouri State Penitentiary book, in the These Walls Still Talk novel, is stuff that happens at Missouri State Penitentiary. Like, it's stuff that guests have seen. It's stuff that tour guides have seen. I didn't go in and throw in make-believe stuff onto their property.
Right.
So when I was chit-chatting with Ernie and Denise, and they were telling me about their place, they're like, yeah, we have Sasquatch sightings, and like, we're sure we've seen like UFOs over the house, and there's this picture of a fairy, and they have like ghost children who like sometimes crawl into bed with them at night, which terrifies me. Like, you have no idea how scary this is. So we talked about it, like, well, maybe I can turn this into a series where every book is a standalone. So you can read them completely out of order. They have nothing to do with each
Right.
other.
They're not connected in
They're
any way.
not
I see what
connected.
you mean. Mm-hmm.
But what runs through them is that I write these stories at the location I'm writing about, and I write it on the property. And then the subject matter is true to that property. So I am flying out to Kentucky in May, and I'm going to spend 4 days at their house to research, to outline, take photos, get a feel for the thing, and then we're going to, later in the year, we've been talking. Then I'm going to then go and actually stay with them in the B&B in the house to write this book. So again, I'm going to be on property. I'm
Okay.
basically going to move in, to write this
Yeah.
book there, and then now that like we've talked about that, and now that's kind of been like officially announced that this is a series, I keep getting people emailing me or messaging me like, oh, I'd love for you to
Come
come
here,
here.
write about
Yeah,
this.
right about this place. Well, because it's like free advertisement for you, for one. Like Missouri State Penitentiary is just getting a whole world of free marketing from me at this point,
That's
right?
great.
Which is amazing because they are amazing, and they didn't have to do what they did.
Paranormal networking.
Yeah, it is. It is. And Sheila did not have to agree to let me, move in for 8 weeks to write this book. She very well could have been like, nope, I don't know you from Adam. You could be some weirdo, but she didn't. She vetted me. She made sure I was who I said I was. Like I said, the staff didn't have to accept me with the open arms they did, but they did. So it's just become a very like symbiotic relationship. And now with the Pax, Ernie and Denise, again, I didn't know them from Adam when I met them at the soiree. Now
Right.
I've become friends with them. We have a group chat that the three of us are in. They're opening their home to me to write the book. They don't have to do that, So
No.
I'm very humbled and I'm not taking this for granted. I am not going into this being like, oh, you should let me into your house because
I mean, I'm sure that you didn't approach it that way, and
no,
they knew how I'm sure that they got some information from the staff at the penitentiary, and they're like, this guy's a cool cat. You can totally trust him. You can totally, just let him do what he needs to do. And they totally said absolutely. And I know I follow you on Facebook, so I'm hoping that when you get there and that you may be sharing some stuff so I can kind of keep up with that.
Oh, I will.
And then any other future locations that may seem to get booked for you going forward. But I think this is a very successful series idea for you, and I wish you nothing but the best. And I know we got about maybe about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
So
yeah, because you got playoffs starting.
I know. I was like, my team is playing, actually I still root for the Redskins. That's what I call them. And I married up, my husband's an Eagles fan. So I married into the Eagles, whatever.
Right.
So I followed them anyway, totally off the paranormal realm. I do want to, not many people know, but now you can share, you own a DeLorean.
Yes.
And just tell us a little bit about how you got it and how much fun it is to own.
Yeah, so the DeLorean's been my dream car my whole life since I was a little kid, and I've gone through my whole life wanting one,
right,
dreaming about owning one. Never thought I would ever own one. It was always it was always like the joke thing, like wanting a DeLorean. Never thought it was tangible. I look back at some pictures. I actually just did this recently. It's funny you bring this up. I was looking back at some old pictures of myself being a teenager, like hanging out with friends, and there's so many pictures of me wearing like DeLorean t-shirts, not Back to the Future t-shirts,
right?
Like just a DeLorean t-shirt.
The car.
Yeah,
right.
Just the car, right? So I was like, oh my God, like it really did just a stupid fanboy on this car for like my whole life. When like you said that my first novel was published in 2007, which is wild to me that it's been that long.
But you've been writing for what?
Yeah.
Over 15 years?
Published for 17. Yeah. Because my first novel was published 3 weeks after my first child was born. So Annalise was born. Annalise was born, and then my novel was published 3 weeks later. So I always know how long I've been published by just knowing how old she is. So,
that's a good barometer.
Yeah, just go. It's how old's my oldest kid? That's how long I've been published.
There you go.
When my second novel came out in 2010, which was a 3-year gap between my first book and my second book. My second book was called Welcome to Parkview, and it's kind of like a Stephen King meets Twilight Zone horror novel. Mm-hmm. And when that book came out, I opened a bank account where all book sale royalties went into that bank account. Because up until then, when it was just the first book, the book royalties were just kind of going into the household. Like it was being used as like, supplemental income, like a part-time job. When the second book hit, it was like, well, you know what? I'm going to separate my book royalties from like my 9-to-5 job, right? As opposed to mixing the two. I'm going to keep them separate.
Mm-hmm.
So I opened up a checking account, and I jokingly called it my DeLorean fund. Like that's what I named it. Like I just named it as my DeLorean fund, right? Third book came out, fourth book came out, fifth book came out, sixth book came out. Book sale royalties just kept, every penny was going into this account, and I wasn't touching the money. It was just going to all of my. I was not used because I had a job. I mean, I have a paycheck. I don't need the book sale royalties. I know that sounds pretentious, but you gotta understand, like it was going in and I was forgetting about it, right? I was selling books and I was kind of forgetting about the money I was making on the books. And it's my mother called me and she's like, hey, I just saw an ad for a DeLorean for sale. I think it might be in your price range. I'll text you the person's phone number. Like, this is my mom. I'm driving, right? So I find the ad, call the lady. She's like, oh, you're the third person to call. Who wants it? I was like, well, I'm not getting it. I'm third person. DeLorean people are fanatics. You don't call and inquire unless you're going to buy one.
Right.
I don't hear from her for like a week. I'd already written it off. And she calls me back. She says, hey, just letting you know, the first guy tried to lowball me with money, with price. He tried to go way below anything I was willing to part with the car. And the second guy, I keep calling and leaving voicemails and he's not calling me back. So I'm giving him 72 hours. And if I don't hear from him, then you're up. You're next. I don't think I slept for 72 hours. I've never wanted someone more in my life. Right?
Right.
And this is 2019. And she called. In fact, her dad called, and I knew it was her dad because it was the same area code. She was in Michigan. So I recognized the area code exchange, and it was her dad. And her dad's like, hey, it's like, it's yours if you want it. Wire the money right now. And I went to the bank in my pajamas because he called in the morning to wire. And so I tell you about that bank account was because the price of my DeLorean, I was able to pay for that car in cash in a wire transfer completely from book sale royalties.
Outstanding.
So my being an author and all of the book sales I had done from 2010 to 2019 paid for that car. So a penny of that car did not have to come out of the household account, didn't have to come out of my paycheck or anything like that. So like, and yeah, I got I've owned, the DeLorean 6 years. It'll be 6. Oh my God, I can't believe it's been 6. It'll be 6 years next month. It was February of 2019. So yeah, I drive it. Yeah. It's my semi-daily driver. And I say that because I don't drive it to and from work, but I drive it everywhere else. So, if I've got to go to the mall or I go to the movies or I go out to eat or I go to the dentist or I got to go get groceries.
There's a lot of, you come out and there's like a crowd around your car.
Every time.
People taking pictures.
Time. Oh my, every time. The worst is driving on the highway and people matching my speed and videoing out their window. And I can't get over. I'm trying to change lanes. And then they're just like, I speed up, they speed up.
I gotta go. I gotta get to this exit.
Yeah. So, and I've had a bunch, so my car's, it's been fun. I love it. And I sometimes, like, it's been almost 6 years and I still sometimes walk into my garage and have to pause and go, I can't believe I actually own one. Like, cause I never thought it would happen.
It's like a little kid. You're like,
I'd still get really excited over it,
That's great. That's great.
So,
well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing. I don't know if you have anything else before we say goodbye.
The only thing I want to say is, people who are watching or listening, again, the book is called These Walls Still Talk. If you're interested in that overnight ghost hunt book release party at Missouri State Penitentiary, and all of the staff are in the book as characters, as themselves. and they will
Awesome.
all be there for the book release party. So that will be
Wonderful.
fun. But yeah, you can go on brianpaone.com. The link to the ticketing and everything is on there. This is my 11th novel, and my books are available in every bookstore, in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. So
Okay.
if people who are watching and listening being like, oh, but this guy sounds kind of cool, but I just don't have time to read anymore. All of my stuff's in audiobook.
That's great. Yeah, because some people don't like to read. They prefer. My
To
husband's
listen.
one of those people that likes to listen to audio. He's not a
Yep.
book. Me, I'm a little bit of both. It all depends
Yeah.
on my
But
mood.
ebook, paperback, and audiobook, every single novel is available. And I do 90% of all of my books are kind of dabble in that Twilight Zone, Stephen Kingy kind of, my Moonlight City Drive trilogy. The main character is a witch from Salem, who survived the witch
Well, there's
trials.
the Salem aspect.
Yeah, I know. I always tend to go back home when I write, so
Yeah.
which was hard. So it was in this book, really quickly, and then I'll let you go. But like in this
Sure.
book, my main character, is from Salem, Massachusetts. Like I had to bring it in somehow, but because I couldn't have the book take place in Salem because it's taking place in Missouri. So I just was like, screw it. My main character, that's where she's going to be from. She's not really, but but for the book purposes, she tells somebody she's from Salem, Massachusetts.
You could like use that as something in the series. I don't know how it would be placed, but I think that's kind of an interesting.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know.
Every time I say I'm not going to go back home, I go back home.
Whether you're describing a location or something that you're kind of using it to refer to something else. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just really enjoyed talking to you both times.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I enjoyed talking to you.
And I hope that once you get, we can get this out there and people can see it. And I hope that there's a lot of people interested and will participate. And thank you for sharing your experiences. And
if anybody wants to like keep talking or have questions, because I know there wasn't like a Q&A involved in this, I answer every email message that comes into my inbox. I do not.
And I encourage everybody, if you're listening to this, watching this, and you have any questions or you want to know more, or you want to talk to him more about it, please reach out. Please email him. I know he would be happy.
If you Google my name, every single way to get in touch with me pops up. So
yes. But thanks again very much. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
And good luck to you.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening and watching. And this will be airing in a couple of weeks. I'll let everybody know. Take care. Keep on being spooky.